Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Universe. The end is here. The final day of fucking off-season content and just projecting and everything. Then we can start the in-season stuff and project who's going to be a sit and start this week. So we're doing the same thing anyways. At least there's games this week. At least there's games. I am Aaron St. Thomas at FF Mad Scientist. Yes, he is Jesse Moeller at JMoeller05. I should probably not block my own face, although I'm better looking this way. Anyways, we've got completely off track here. I am on my lunch hour, so I'm a little bit energetic here. We are going to go through the consensus redraft running back rankings. Kind of going to do it in tiers, kind of going to do it in rankings. It's the last day of off-season content, so we're just going to wing this shit and go through it and see who we like, who we don't like. And then we will be back tomorrow with what are we doing tomorrow? Waiver wire? No waiver wire. No, we start game previews. That's what it is. Today would have been waiver wire, but there really is no waiver wire. So.
I was like, we can if you want. I don't know.
No. Yes. I wrote a waiver wire column for this week, but it's more of a, guys to stash. It's basically stash every rookie that's available that had any draft capital and just hope he pans out. But no, today would have been waiver wire, but I've got the actual in-season schedule stuck in my head. We're going to do running back rankings instead. So I guess we start off at the top here. Seems as good as place as any. My top tier, I have 4 or 5, depending. I have CMC, Brees, Bijan in that order. And then my 4 is JT. 5, I think, is Jahmyr Gibbs. You could also make the case for me that he's a bridge. I think I want him as my number 5 in here. He was number 4 at some point. That injury kind of concerns me a little bit. So he still, I think, is good enough to sneak into my top tier. Although he's the only one in this group who really doesn't seem to be, like McCaffrey, Hall, Taylor don't have a 1B. I get Bijan kind of has Algier, who might take a little work, but it doesn't really scare me. Gibbs is the only one with an injury currently, a serious injury. McCaffrey, they've been sitting out with a calf. It doesn't seem like it's an issue. Gibbs, I think, I don't know what worries me more, the injury or Montgomery. So I'm still including Gibbs in here. He's my 5, though. What are your thoughts on tier 1?
So I'm significantly lower on JT. I've been lower on him throughout the entire process. He's never really been a high-end pass catcher, and that's my biggest concern with him. His RB1 season from 2 years ago, he had something like 85 goal line touches. The next guy, the second best guy, had 45. That just seems super unsustainable, where he's basically like Derrick Henry, where you need a ton of touchdowns to kind of make up for the lack of receiving, because the most receptions he has push 50. He's never going to be a 100-target type guy in this offense. And with Anthony Richardson kind of stealing the touchdowns and kind of siphoning some of that passing down work on top of it too, I think he's super high floor. So him and Saquon are in that tier 3, but already down through my top 2. So I definitely have Bijan, Brees, and CMC in tier 1. Those guys are the top 3. I want one of those 3. Then it goes down, and I have Gibbs and Achane, because those are my 2 favorite bets outside of the 3 to be RB1 guys. And I know we talked about this yesterday, you guys are a little lower on Achane, but I'm fine taking the upside shot there. And then tier 3 gets a little bit different. It's Saquon, Kyron, JT, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, and James Cook round out basically my top 11. So that tier 3 is more of those guys that are either going to be really volume guys or guys that do a little bit of both with the touches and the carries and have a big sustainable workload like Kyron, Saquon, JT, Josh Jacobs, Henry are all going to see significant work for me. So they're up there. I just view them more as high floors than I do have in an RB1 ceiling. So I view it a little bit differently with JT, but you could make the case if you want him up there. I wouldn't fight anybody putting him up there.
I love this Dan Campbell Applebee's commercial on a complete side note. Have you seen it?
I just saw it. I cracking up, yeah.
I love Dan Campbell. Anyway, sorry, I just seen it pop up on my timeline again. So for me, tier 2 is kind of wing it here. It changes a bit every day. It's a little bit bigger tier for me. I have Saquon, Kyron, not in any particular order. I'm just kind of naming the guys here. Saquon, Kyron, Henry, Etienne, Achane, Pacheco. What's that? 6 for me? Yeah, it's 6. I have Saquon at the top. Then I believe I'm gonna move things around here. I'm redoing my final rankings as we speak. So Saquon, then I have ETN. Then I believe I go Kyren, Achan, Henry, Pacheco, and that's how I end it. Pacheco, I think, is going to lose a little bit of work to P. Ryan, whatever the hell we want to call him. I think he takes the in role, but which is enough to kind of chip away in the pass volume. But I think Pacheco's still in tier 2 for me, which is 6 guys. What are your thoughts there for tier 2? I know you kind of listed yours, but
I like Pacheco. He's the tier lower. You can make the. I think him and Mixon are the 2 guys in that kind of range that I'll hit on next that have a high ceiling on top of it too. Not as high as RB1, but like they're going to get a lot of work. I think the issue for Pacheco is it all kind of lined up where McKinnon suffered an injury last year and he got more work receiving. And that's kind of, I struggle projecting that for him because we've seen P. Ryan. He saw freaking, he was a target magnet last year and wherever he's been. And like with the Broncos, he was still involved. And I get it. Peyton loves targets running backs, but P. Ryan still saw a good target share. He was on the field. He's a trusted pass blocker. So I think he slots into the kind of that McKinnon role that they had. So I struggle to find the ceiling for Pacheco, so that's why he falls in the Mixon range. I also have Ken Walker there, who's in that range. Like there's a lot of guys, and it's basically 12 through 17 is my tier 4, and those are all guys I really like. But there's a little bit of stuff like I can kind of talk myself out of them at ADP. So it's just I like them, but it's not as much as like we talk about Saquon, Kyren, JT, and Jacobs and those guys because I view those guys just either better situations or just better opportunities for them. So that's kind of why they're a little bit higher. And I'm just, I love James Cook. So is what it is. Yeah, I have Kyren at, what is he? Kyren is my RB where he's my RB7. So I'm higher on him. Pacheco's my RB14, but there's not a big difference between those 2 guys. It's like, I know we're separating the tiers, but like, I'm not expecting like Walker to significantly score less points than those guys. Like they're all very similar, just a couple points per game difference. So it's all pretty much. But the only guys I've used 20 plus point per game are the top 3 is Brees, Bijan, and CMC. Like everybody else falls short of that.
This tier is so tough. Like I think Saquon's safe. I like ETN. He's pretty safe. Kyren I'm low on. But like my rankings and my projections don't always match out. Like my projections are pretty much what I think the most likely outcome is. A lot of times my rankings are building in upside, which is why I have Kyren and Achan this high. I don't ever draft either of them this high because I don't think RB 8 and 9 where I have them. I don't think that's their likeliest range of outcomes. I have them more in the teens. Henry, I think I have him at RB 10. I think he easily beats that. Pacheco, as you said last year, the interesting part is as high as everyone is on him, he kind of, like you said, he got best case scenario in the situation last year. He was still only RB 15 in PPR. So that kind of scares me. That second tier is a really scary spot here where I typically aim for Barkley or ETN or I transition to wide receiver. Having said that, it's because I don't want like second round, early to mid second round is where I normally see Barkley, ETN, Kyren, and Achan go. I don't ever take Kyren or Achan that early. Henry and Pacheco I have some shares of because I have them on the 2-3 turn, so the cost is a little more friendly. I have actually the next tier here. It is for me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5.5. We'll get there in a second. This is the tier I have a lot more of because I get these guys in the 3rd, 4th, and sometimes even 5th round. So for me, I'm going to re-rank them as I go. But so I have Josh Jacobs, James Cook, Joe Mixon, Ken Walker, Rashad White, and the guy who's kind of the bridge for me in this is Alvin Kamara. But I really like the top 5 of Jacobs, Cook, Mixon, Walker, White. Those are, I would imagine, on 95% of my rosters, one of those 5 is on my team in every single one of them. I love that group there, and I hammer them. There's always seems to be one of them falling. Sometimes it's Cook. I don't know why. I think Cook's going to smash. But like I said, this is kind of a personal preference of fantasy. A lot of times the guys I love, you hate. But what do you think of this group?
Yeah, that like our tiers kind of overlap a little bit because like I have Walker, Mixon, Pacheco, ETN, James Conner, all RB12 through RB16.
Connor's my next guy outside of this list or this tier,
like
actually.
To me, they're all similar-ish bets, and you can even throw James Cook in this group. I have him the tier above, but like I know I'm higher on James Cook than a lot of people. But these are all guys that are going to get work. They're going to be involved in both like the run and the pass. They're going to see opportunities. Some of the offenses are really good, some not so good. But like my issue with ETN, why I'm lower on him, The offensive line, I need to see it because he was super inefficient last year. He was super volume dependent. Well, this also gets into my issue with Rachaad White and Alvin Kamara, who are the lowest of this tier. They're my RB18, RB19. It's projectable volume, but it is super inefficient volume. So every time we get these guys, and like with the Rachaad White, for instance, Bucky Irving's going to play a role in that offense. He's not going to see all of the touches on the front side. Like he'll get the high value touches, but Irving more just caps your ceiling if he's doing the runs in between the 20s and playing that role, right? Because he can do that. The interesting thing for Kamara is, dude, he was incredibly inefficient. Like he was not good running back by any means. He just got a bunch of checkdowns, and that's how he succeeded in PPR. Now you could make the case for him; it's going to be the exact same thing again. But I just hate projecting in that volume for inefficient running backs because I still don't trust that offense, and that line looks like it's a disaster again. So for Kamara, hasn't been a good rusher in years. It's been a long time since he's been a good rusher. It's going to be like ugly volume. I call him the ugliest RB1 you can get because you can make it in RB1. I just don't like drafting him RB1 costs. Like I like letting him fall. If he falls, I'll take him because I just view him as, I know he's RB3 in points per game last year. I just don't see him coming close to that this year. That might be me just like overcounting efficiency, but that's why he falls in that range. Like I think I'd prefer Connor to Kamara straight up, but like both of them are kind of similar bets.
I'm a Saints fan, and Kamara's one of my favorites of all time, but you could make the case he was never a good rusher. Like his rookie year, he averaged 6 yards per carry. Every other year, it was about 4.5, high threes the last 3 years. So he was never a great rusher. It was always his career high is 932. His career low was last year at 694, but it's always 7, 8, 900, which isn't horrible. But it's like if it wasn't for the fact that he started his career with 4 years in a row of 81, 81, 81, 83 receptions. That's what kept him alive. That's what kept him in the top 5 or 10 for fantasy. The problem is the last 3 years, it's been cut in half. And I'm going to double check that. You think he's my favorite player of all time. You'd think I would remember exactly. But okay, so that's exactly what it is. Drew Brees retired in 2020. I couldn't remember if it was 2020 or 2021. So from 2020, he goes from 81, 81, 81, 83. Drew Brees retires. We have new quarterbacks all over the place. 47, 57, 75 last year. So it was back up a bit with Derek Carr. But that's the worrisome part here. Like, he's never been an efficient rusher. He's never been more of a, like, it's an 800-yard rushing. It's been 800 yards rushing, 700 yards receiving for an all-purpose 1,500 yards. His touchdowns have actually, there were 6 total last year, 4 total the year before, 9 the year before that, 21. So, like, he was going from where it was 15 to 20 total touchdowns to where it's 5 or 6. So, I think Carr might continue to use him, but he's never been an efficiency guy. This offense doesn't score. Like, they're not the Drew Brees Saints where they used to score 40, 50 points a game. They're 20, 21 a lot of the time. And that's what it is. He's got no touchdown upside. He doesn't have carry volume. He doesn't have high rushing yards. He's going to have 2 to 6 touchdowns on the ground. It looks like maybe 2 more through the air, and you're just hoping he can recoup. But I don't know. He's 29.
Yeah,
I love Kamara. It's painful, but that Derek Carr, they're brutal.
They were the interesting thing about the Saints is they were 8th in touchdowns last year, and I'm expecting that to not be sustainable for them just because of how they played and everything. What I expect them to do is try to push the ball downfield more, so they're going to push Shaheed and Olave more doing that with play action. I think Kamara is going to be close to what we saw 2 years ago, where he was like 14 points per game. I just don't see him hitting what he did last year. So I'm kind of banking in that projection based on what they're doing with that offense. And I entirely could be wrong because Kamara, he saw 19% target share last year. It's still really incredible. It's the check down stuff. It's super inefficient. Like I would expect the coaching staff, it is Dennis Allen. So, we all hate Dennis Allen, to like kind of go the efficient way with the offense, and that involves decreasing Alvin Kamara's role. I don't know if it's going to happen though, so I could entirely be wrong on him. But the other guy in this group is also Jonathan Brooks. Like for me, Jonathan Brooks is right alongside Rachaad White and Alvin Kamara because he's the last guy. Like once we get past him, I view as a true RB1 when he's going to be on the field playing. So like I have him in this tier because I'm fine missing the first 6 to 8 weeks with him, however long it takes. When he gets on the field, if he's an RB1, like I don't care. That's difference making production. So that's why I'm going to bank on that from a young explosive back in an offense that's going to be entirely dependent on. So that's why I have him in this tier. I imagine most people have him lower than that because they don't want to.
I have him at RB38.
Yeah, I have him at RB.
I have no interest in him. If he's going off the board and he's 3 tiers for me, I don't start considering him until I get down to the group that is Swift, Warren, Brian Robinson, Zach Moss, Austin Eckler, and then I have Jonathan Brooks. I have he's in the Gus Edwards 4. I don't know if he's gonna play. I think he misses half a season. When he comes back, I think he's not what he was. This injury, excuse me, I think it's second year. I think he's a great stash for next year, but that doesn't help me in redraft. So I have absolutely none of Brooks at this cost.
I just once we get past Kamara and Connor, a lot of these guys don't offer ceiling cases. So I'm pushing up guys with ceiling cases because when we get to the next tier, it goes Tajay Spears, there's Brian Robinson. But it's really hard to find a true RB1 out of any of these players. Ramondre Stevenson, Zach Moss, Aaron Jones. None of these guys, I could project them even best case scenario getting to RB1 status. So I'm not going to I'll take those guys. I've taken plenty of those guys. It's just I want ceiling cases because ceiling wins you championships in redraft, specifically redrafts. Yeah. So I'm going to push up the guys. That's why I have Spears at RB20. I know I'm way above consensus on him too. It's just, those are my guys this year. So those are my flight plans for sure. When we get past the tier, what does your next tier look like for your rankings?
Okay, my next tier. So I guess Connor was the bridge. You could have pushed him up for me there. I didn't, but so I have Connor, Montgomery, Aaron Jones, Raheem Mostert, and then I kind of feel like that's a tier for me right there because the next 3 I have are Najee, Javonte, and Ramondre. And you know what? It's not. So I'm going to move Ramondre down is the problem. So that tier for me there is, it is. Okay, so it's Connor, Montgomery, Jones, Mostert, and then Najee, and then we'll leave Javonte out. So I have 1, 2, 3, 5 there. And like I said, Connor probably could go up in the next tier, but I think Montgomery's good enough even in part-time role. I think Aaron Jones, if he stays healthy, I think he still has top 12 upside. Mostert, I think, is like Montgomery. He's still going to be a value as an RB2. And I think Najee is kind of a sneaky pick here. So that's my group here where I don't want any of them as my RB1. And in some cases, I don't want them as my RB2. But it's kind of if I've gone hero RB, I don't mind adding these guys. They're probably not ceiling options, like you said. They're all consistent guys. But for my RB2, I don't mind just a boring, consistent guy who I can plug in, and then go a little riskier. I get the upside argument, but I've had too many seasons go awry with, it's like in my dynasty league, the one guy wants, you want all rookies. Well, that's great. Rookies are great upside, but you can't win with a team full of rookies. You can't win with a team really full of just upside plays. So would you consider Corum an RB1 after a few weeks of Kyron gets injured? Well, I guess you have to, right?
Him as an RB1. Yeah, I would for sure.
Kyron's out.
There's no competition. You're like Ronnie Rivers, get out of here.
It's a case of volume and opportunity because don't get me wrong, I'm a Michigan guy. I love Corum. Corum was one of my favorite all-time players. I have a jersey. The problem is, I've been saying this since he got drafted. I wish he had gone to Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers because the way he won at Michigan, I don't know if he can be successful in the NFL. He won at Michigan as a short yardage back and a goal line back. He's too small to do that in the NFL, and the Rams' offensive line is not the Michigan. The Michigan offensive line just lined up and pushed motherfuckers around. The Rams' offensive line's not going to do that. He's going to have to be better and more efficient, and he couldn't do it. I don't think he can do it, I should say, but I don't know.
I think
Corum, I guess, would be an RB1, but
sure.
It's an opportunity bet, not a talent bet.
I agree. With the thing with Kyron that I think a lot of people are mistaking is he's like a target magnet, and that's not the case really. He only saw an 11% target share last year. His targets were fine, but he's not a Kamara or any one of those guys. Corum can give you in that range of receptions. He could do that, and then he's just getting a ton of volume on top of it, and that's kind of what this offense would do for the Rams. So they're very similar players. I think. I think he can give.
Corum's Ken Walker.
Yeah,
he's Ken Walker. He can catch. He just doesn't catch.
Yeah, which you can get to an offense like the Rams, you can get 10% target share doing that. I think it's just like if you're gonna give me 10% target share with the volume that he would get because there's no other competition. Like Ron Rivers is a passing down back, he's not gonna get volume on that. Like there's nobody else on the roster besides Corum. This is the whole case for Kyron, right? Like those two guys are similar enough. Like he can give you close to what Kyron was giving you last year. So for me, yeah, he would project as RB1, I think, like fairly easily. Just because it's really hard to find like a lot of 12 capable guys that you trust week in and out. Back to kind of the Javonte thing. I think he's in the Najee tier for me because we talk about like PPR receptions. Like that offense is going to absolutely target the running. I'll place any bet anybody wants. The Broncos running backs lead the league in targets again. Like it's not even going to be close with Bo Nix. Like they'll probably push 150 targets. So like Javonte, like I've come around. I prefer Javonte straight up to Najee. I think it's just a better bet and a potentially better offense. So I flipped them. But like they're both right around RB20. He's RB22. There's that. And then Jaleel, who's a little bit later, he's like my RB32. I like Jaleel a lot too because another guy that's gonna be super involved with targets. And if it's PPR league, like these are the backs we want. So for me personally, like I like targeting those guys. I think if you want to attack either one of those offenses, you're gonna get a very valuable like RB2 worst case, and they have upside to give you a little bit more.
I have Javonte up in this group pretty high. I have two worries with Javonte. I know Sean Payton better than I know any coach in NFL history. He's been my guy. And if I know one thing about Sean Payton, it's he's going to use 2 running backs or more, which kind of scares me for Javonte's upside. The other thing is, after the injury, his broken tackles and missed tackle rate plummeted. Like that was his thing. He was always the Derrick Henry, I'm just going to fucking run through you. That didn't happen since the injury. And unless he makes a big step forward here, he's not explosive enough to win like the other guys do. He needs to get that Derrick Henry back in him. So I still have some faith left in Javonte. He's very scary though, because like I said, Sean Payton hates fantasy football. I can tell you that. And he's just going to do screwy, unpredictable things all year long.
If this was
my next group here is
he'd be a lot.
My next group here is where it kind of gets interesting. So I have Ramondre in it. I have no shares of him. I am not the Ramondre guy. It's just I can only move him down in my rankings so far below ECR. And I'm just like, I think this is as low as I can get him. But then I have Singletary, who looks to be the number one. I have Pollard, who I don't like at all, right? Followed up by Spears, Chase Brown, Zamir White, DeAndre Swift, Jalen Warren, B-Rob. Like this is a group here of guys where I think I'm looking to target Spears, Chase Brown, Singletary. Like I have no shares of Stevenson, no shares of Pollard, no shares of Zamir White, no shares of DeAndre Swift. I have a little bit of Warren, a little bit of B-Rob, but this is typically a spot where I find in the drafts. I think we did this in your draft yesterday. This is where you're targeting the rookie receivers, I think, because I don't have any of these guys except for Spears and Chase Brown because they seem to fall in some leagues. Actually, I also see I think I should move him up. I think I have Zach Moss at the top of this group. I don't know why he's at the bottom of this group. Go figure.
I flipped him and Chase Brown. I prefer Chase Brown now.
They announced Moss as the starter today, though.
They did, yeah. Like this, I worry how those touches are going to shake out. Like if Chase Brown's going to get more high value touches, like that backfield, I struggle with. Like I've gone back and forth with those guys. They're back to back in rankings. Like I prefer the Brian Robinsons because I know he's going to get volume. I know people like Eckler. I just don't see it with Eckler this year, particularly Jaden Daniels. And maybe I'm wrong with that, but like Raheem Mostert's in that range. Brian Robinson. The reason why I broke this up into 2 tiers, it's because I prefer the guys RB20 through 25 compared to the guys RB26 through 31. Like I just prefer those guys more. So I push them up in my rankings. That's how I want my drafts to kind of reflect that. So like it goes Tajay RB20, Javonte's 21, Najee's 22, Ramonde's 23, Mostert's 24, Brian Robinson's 25. And then tier 5 or 6, I'm not sure which one it is. I got Chase Brown RB26, Aaron Jones RB27, DeAndre Swift RB28, Jalen Warren 29, David Montgomery RB30, and Tony Pollard rounds it out RB31. Because once we get past Pollard, man, it's like pick your poison with these running backs for me. Like you can make the case for Zamir White, any one of these guys. It gets really ugly. I know we talk about like these guys in depth positions and things like that nature, but it's a lot of handcuffs, backups. It's just there's not a lot of volume that's projectable out of that. So if you get into that range, I get a little bit worried.
But they're all ugly because they're all ambiguous backfields. So that's the thing what you do here. this is why we target ambiguous backfields, because you read it one way, and if you're right, you win. Like for me, I think B-Rob and Eckler's an interesting one. I think they're both going to have value because I think Robinson gets all the groundwork, and I think Eckler is going to operate as almost the wide receiver 2 here. So I think they could both be sneaky. But the problem is, if you read it like Zach Moss gets the 55 and Chase Brown gets the 45, so you target whichever one you believe in. If you're right, it looks good. You're gonna be wrong. Like same with Pollard and Spears. If I'm the Titans, I have Spears getting far more work than Pollard, but I guess you can even make the same argument with Ramondre and Gibson. I don't understand that one at all, because to me they're the same player. I don't get, like, at least with B-Rob and Eckler, they have opposite skill sets. One's a pure plotting running back, one's a pass catching outside the tackles kind of guy. Stevenson and Gibson are clones of each other. Like they do the same thing. So, but I don't know. You just kind of
different ways. Like I can't stand Gibson because he consistently makes mistakes, and that's what Ramondre doesn't do. But like Ramondre is actually, I think he's a better rusher and I think Gibson's actually a better pass catcher. But the issue with Gibson is you can't trust him in pass protection. He makes a lot of mistakes as a rusher. So like this is why he wore out his welcome in Washington, and like this is why he's on cheap for the Patriots, because the talent's there. Everyone sees the talent. It's just like he's a guy that's like 80% complete, and that 20% is what holds him back. So he's just like, where you have Ramondre, who I think is just a more complete back. And a couple years ago, they're super efficient, but like he's not going to see a ton of volume. Like, and the offense is going to be one of the worst in the NFL unless Drake May massively beats expectations. So it's like, how high can you put a guy like that, right? Especially if he's splitting work. So it's just, this is where we get into the issues with these running backs. But I think he's a fine like RB3 on your team. It's just, I don't really want to have to start as my RB2 week in and week out like that. That's where it gets worrisome. So that's why I'm chasing the Tajay Spears, why I put him top of these tiers. Because like that's the guy, like he doesn't need a lot of share of this backfield similar to Gibbs or HM. Like they don't need a ton of work. He's going to be passing down back in that offense. And we see that offense is going to pass a lot. So I'll take a guy with a 15% target share as a rookie, project him a little bit more, see how it goes. Because I want the upside shot of that at least.
I think that's an indictment in the failure of the Commanders coaching staff. You draft a guy who was a slot receiver at, what was it, Memphis for Gibson? And then you put him in a running back position and you wonder why he can't run the ball or block. He's a receiver. That's why he can't play running back. Why did as weak as they are, why would they not put him back as a slot receiver? I don't understand it.
Like this was his coach's decision in college because like he wasn't getting any run as the wide receiver. So like the coach of Memphis was like, hey, let's make you a running back. And this is how he got steam because like he's a freak athlete and it's a lot easier to do like the running back stuff than it is the wide receiver. He's kind of like an incomplete wide receiver. But yeah, like I think it would make sense the Patriots to use him as a weapon because they don't have weapons, right? Like I think that's the goal they're gonna have with him. It's just he makes too many mistakes. And like you see this with coaches all the time. They just don't put up with mistakes. So if you're not gonna do what they want you to do, you get yanked out the game. So like this is my whole issue with Gibson. Until he cleans that up, he's just gonna be tantalizing. And like I just don't want him. Like he's the guy that's on my do not draft list because he's just gonna drive you crazy. Like you're never gonna know what he's gonna hit. He's a better and best ball type player just because it's gonna be super inconsistent with him.
After this group, I look and the tier is basically all injury. Either the guys who are injured or the guys who are going to replace them or guys I don't really want. So I have Eckler in no particular order here. I have Eckler, Jonathan Brooks, Gus Edwards, Jerome Ford, Blake Corum, Rico Dowdle, Chubbard, Nick Chubb, Zeke, Charbonnet. Like this group, it's all guys where it's, Hubbard might have 4 weeks of value, but then it's going to be Brooks, allegedly, Ford might have 4 weeks of value, then it's going to be Chubb. This is the group of guys where I don't really have or want any of them besides Ford. And I only want Ford because I think Chubb is going to miss half of the season or more. I guess the upside play here is Corum or Charbonnet. I think I'd rather stash them than just say, let's take Gus Edwards in a four-headed backfield where we don't have any idea who's going to take it. I do think Eckler's not a terrible value at RB 34 off the board. I just want to look at something here because I think, so he has had receiving yards. He's been over 400 yards in every year except his rookie year, which obviously he didn't get much play. I get it. The rushing yards are tailing off in his efficiency, but the receiving yards, he's always been, I guess the last few years it's been 6-ish. It was 9 in 1 year, but outside the 1 year where he had 9 yards per target on receiving, he's been high 5s 6'7" ish range. So I think he still has value as a pass catcher in Washington. Because they don't freaking have anyone, but I don't know how much Jaden Daniels checks down, but I'm willing to take a shot on Austin Eckler as like a flex running back for me. I get it. He's probably not going to be there, but
yeah, the interesting thing, and this might be due to the injury, but like Robinson was a better receiver than him last year, which like he's actually not a bad receiver. So I just don't know if he's going to get all the receiving work. Like if you could tell me Austin Eckler gets all the receiving work, fine, on board with that. I just don't know what's going to happen. I think they're going to be splitting that, and then Robinson's going to get the carries on top of it. So that's what worries me with Eckler. Like, and then you have Daniels, who's also going to run 125 times this year. Like that's a projectable range for him. Like he's going to run a lot. So I do worry about Eckler. So like I'm letting other people draft him as well. He's ranked as my RB35, but like he's not a guy I'm targeting. So like I could be wrong on that though for sure. Like there's definitely a case where he just bounces back from the injury. He's what we saw a couple years ago, where he's one of the better backs in the NFL. It's just I'm gonna root for him because he is like the perfect guy to root for because like his story is straight out of Hollywood, right? Like he was born and raised. He was on a ranch, got into like a small school. That he was the like Western Colorado, had to go to a workout at a normal school to even get to a pro day. Like he didn't even get a pro. So it's a really cool story with him. I just worry about him.
What do you think of this team here? I like it. And his question in the end is start Eckler, Najee, or Singletary. I'm starting Najee over Eckler and Singletary.
Yes, I'm doing Najee. If I'm going between Eckler and Singletary, I'm just taking the guy with the volume, and that's Singletary early. Like I like Tracy as a dart throw, but like Singletary is going to be the guy early on until he shows otherwise. And the thing about Singletary is he's always been a capable NFL back. So the best case, like Tyrone Tracy has to be really good to take away that work from him. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but like that's.
But we're taking Najee over both, right?
Yes,
Najee over Eckler and Singletary.
Yeah, for sure for me. Like Singletary's close to Najee, but like I just trust Najee's role a little bit better in what they're gonna do. I don't trust the Giants offense, man. Like I don't like Pittsburgh's offense. I hate the Giants offense. Like that's what the differentiator is for me. With that team though, like it's a pretty solid team. You got Burrow, Saquon, K9, Chase Cup, Pitts. Like yeah, it could work out pretty well for you. You need McLaurin or Pitts to kind of take a step forward if you're gonna like go for the contender, but it's possible. Definitely possible.
We are now down into RB45 in my rankings, and from here out, it's just a different volume or a different level of handcuff or dart throw. So, like I said, no particular order here. There's some guys I'm not interested in, some I am. Ty Chandler, Jaleel McLaughlin, Trey Benson, Algier, Gibson, Wright, Khalil Herbert, Davis, Irving, Tyrone Tracy, Vidal. I have Eli Mitchell, but I should swap that out for Jordan Mason. I haven't updated these. Marshawn Lloyd, Braylon Allen, Roshan, Madison, Bigsby. There's Mason there. Other than that, like once we get below that, it's Pierce, AJ Dillon, I guess maybe Foreman, but we've got a group here of probably 10 to 15 guys. Some of them, a lot of them are rookies. They're all basically backups where you're just, I don't know, this is straight up handcuff territory. Is there anyone really in this territory here that you're particularly interested in handcuffing?
I'm just taking the big ceiling shots. So like, because like these guys aren't going to play for you. Like there's no point in taking the floor play guys because they never get into your lineup. So what's the point of drafting them? So I'm not going to take a freaking Miles Sanders because he's going to be just nothingness, right? So I'll take the Chuba Hubbard if I need early work, like if I have Brooks, then I get him. Or you take the upside on Tracy. You could do the Dowdle experience if you want. I don't mind him in this range. Gibson's another guy with semi-standalone value, but if an injury happens to Ramondre, he becomes a lot more valuable. So like you talked about Jordan Mason, that he's one of the best handcuff backs. Ty Chandler, an interesting guy who could steal some more work. Jalen Wright, Marshawn Lloyd, Kamani Vidal, like all of these guys are the guys I'm targeting in this range because you want guys that if you see the upside scenario, if it hits, they become difference makers for you. So like I'm not going to target these backups that don't give you passing down work. If it's a backup or a handcuff guy that has passing down work on top of his rushing, or it's one of the better offenses in the NFL, like Jordan Mason with the 49ers. Like those are the type of guys I'm targeting because they're going to be playing for you. So like that's the upside bets there. The interesting thing with Roshan and why I don't like Roshan is even if injury happens to Swift, it's still a split, right? So like he's not going to get all the work there. So like this is why I hate the Chicago backfield because Roshan's not going to take over all of the rushing and the receiving work. So like it's still going to be a split. That's the problem. So, like, even with the worst, like, best case scenario that happens is Swift, you need another injury on top of it to give Roshan all that work. So, like, he's the guy I'm not targeting because, like, I don't see the ceiling with him. So, as much as I liked him coming out, like, it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen for Roshan, which is unfortunate. But he'll be the passing down back. Like in that scenario, and probably get a little bit more volume, but like it's going to be 50-50 split more than likely with him. So it's just it's tough with a lot of those guys where they have a capable other running mate in that backfield. So unless we get news that he's the guy coming out, then yeah, like I'm just not targeting that type of guy, unfortunately.
I loved Roshan, but after Dave Richard went to Bears training camp, and he was saying he's out on a lot of these Bears all over at cost. Like you've got 2 tight ends, you've got 3 receivers, you've got 3 running backs, and all of that with a rookie quarterback. So I like Roshan, but like you said, it seems like it's going to be even split in the pass catching, even split at tight end, even split at running back. There's just way too many pieces here. And a rookie quarterback typically supports 1, maybe 2 fantasy assets. I don't have any faith that I would be happy. I think it's a win if he is able to produce an elite ceiling or an elite season from like DJ Moore and a usable ceiling out of Odunze or Allen. To expect 3 good receivers, a halfway usable Cole Kmet, and 2 or 3 or even 1 useful running back, that's way too much. He's going to have to throw for 6,000 yards as a rookie to support all these options. And that's the other thing. You said, even if Swift was out and they could split the running back and pass catching role, there's not a pass catching role. They're going to have too many fucking, and Caleb's not a big check down guy. There's already too many receivers to include the running backs. This is why I think the Bears are my least owned team. I think they were the only team that we got through Scott Fishbowl without rostering, I believe.
Well, I think we got maybe a guy or 2 on that roster.
No, because there was one team. I thought it was the Bears. We got through with. There was only one team we didn't own. Yeah, I thought it was.
I wanted Odunze, but somebody took it before me, so I was like, well, you know what? It is what it is. Yeah, like I think it's just Odunze and DJ Moore. You just bet on the talent of those 2 guys because they are by far the best players on that roster outside Caleb Woods. Like I know people talk about Caleb or Keenan Allen, but like he's on the downward trajectory. I just think it's much more likely the wide receivers and the running backs are the guys that give you fantasy points based on how this offense is going to go. And maybe Swift gets volume, but Swift's never been a high-end volume guy. Like that's never been what Swift's been. So, and also if he's similar situation like a bunch of pass catchers, it's like that's why I don't like Swift. Don't like Roshan. I don't like Khalil Herbert. I think Herbert can give you a floor play. I just worry about the other guys. Like it's just nothing. I'll take.
Do you know in his career, anytime DeAndre Swift has had 22 carries or more in back-to-back games, he's gotten injured. He's never done it 3 times in a row without being injured. So that's all you need to know there.
It's like he saw the most volume in his career last year, and what did he give you? Like it's just Swift's not that guy we wanted him to be. That's why they went out and got Jahmyr Gibbs, right? Like this is what it is. Like his highest career, like it's fine. He's fine back. It's just I don't know. I think they overpaid for him.
We wanted him to be CMC. We got Tony Pollard is what we got. All right. I think we can end it there because it gets even uglier and most of these guys aren't worth rostering. So check back tomorrow. We are not sure what time yet. We were supposed to go at noon, but I have an appointment I have to get to. It's my day off, so I think we're going to try and do it at 2. But check back tomorrow. We're going to preview the AFC home games, starting with the opening kickoff Thursday night. Ravens at Chiefs. So we will be back tomorrow for that and to actually start previewing some games instead of just talking random shit about who we think is going to be good. We will see you tomorrow. Thank you all for watching.